Welcome back, and today we're at Tallarook, and this is some video I took for some Instagram reels, but I've thrown it all together and put some music to it because there was no audio to this, and I've put it up on YouTube for people who may be interested in doing these tracks which are listed. These are pretty straightforward, easy-going tracks. There's a bit of a steep pinch in a couple of things here on this mountain track, but other than that, they're pretty straightforward and you'll get through on, your normal 4B. And mountain track pretty well takes off straight uphill, and it's directly off the main road which runs right through the Tallarook Ranges. And as you can see here, it's been raining. It's quite rocky in the base. It's got clay coming through, but there's no traction issues at all heading up through here. And you can probably pick up from the drone footage that we're sort of heading steadily uphill here. And we're going to be coming up to some rocky outcrops which have sort of been ripped and teared away a little bit, but there's no real issues to pick a way through or around them. And this is heading straight up the side of Mount Hickey. It's going to take us over to the fire tower. And keep an eye out because there is some good views off the top of here, just where there's a saddle before it climbs right up to Mount Hickey up here further. You can see right out back down towards Melbourne and back over to Mount Disappointment. I didn't go too crazy today with letting the tyres down. I think I went down to about 18, 20 psi. There's no real traction issues on these tracks, even with it being wet. And you can see how rocky it is just here from the overhead. And you can see up further here as we climb, we're coming up to the first rock outcrop where it's been torn away a little bit from 4Bs mucking about on it or going full noise. Bear in mind we're pretty close to Melbourne here, and the rip and tear crew get out here of the weekend, so tracks can change being ripped up a little bit. And there's multiple different ways you can pick your way around this outcrop to suit your 4B. And it was quite windy this day I was out there, and it was affecting the drone with low light and the wind combined, especially in amongst the close foliage like it is here. And just here to the right is a little spot where people have either camped or set up to have some lunch with the views. And another good spot here to the right as well for a bit of lunch or look out at the views. You're up here on a bit of a knob in between the saddle before you head up to Mount Hickey, so it's a really good spot to just check out your surroundings. And up we go climbing again. And there's some rocky outcrops in this bit as well before we get up to the top. And for anyone that doesn't know, Mount Hickey and Tallarook Ranges is only about an hour north of Melbourne. It's quite accessible. There's other places to go off-roading and four-wheel driving in the area, including Mount Disappointment, which is just south of Tallarook. And you can drive between the both. State Forrest on Orange track, which is a two-wheel vehicle track, but the views in between both of the state forests are absolutely incredible. You've got the Murchison Gap in about the middle, crosses over the Strath Creek Road, but there's a lookout at Murchison Gap and you can look out right up towards Yea. And you can see here the drone struggling with the light conditions. But we're right up the top of Mount Hickey here, and that's the phone tower. And just off to the left there, that's down onto Phone Track. And you're looking out there towards Seymour and Tallarook. And that's coming back around to the freeway, heading back towards Melbourne. You can see Sugarloaf there in the middle, which is the little mountain there. And now we're looking back down towards Mount Disappointment and Melbourne. And the fire tower operates here over Summit. And these are really just highlights and outtakes. We're about halfway along Rocky Track here, where it starts getting a little bit interesting as it gets a little bit steeper heading down towards Orange Track. It was a little bit slippery on some of these rocks, but even in a pretty standard 4B, again, you can pick your way around all of these rocks without dragging through the centre. And you can get an idea of the incline here from the video. It's nothing crazy. You could bring your standard four-wheel drive out here, no problem. It might scare a few people to look at it just going through here. But you just got to remember that this guy's only got about 50mm lift in it, and it's going through here no problem in the wet. And you can, if you take your time, you can pick your way through this. I'm pretty well heading straight through in the disco. The only thing I would recommend in a standard 4B on road tyres in the dry is just don't let them down too far and don't get a run at the rocks or the tracks, because you'll do sidewall damage on these tracks because of the rocks. And the tyres I'm running are Michelin XZLs, and they're a military tyre, NATO specialist tyre. They've got really good sidewalls for running over ground that's had shrapnel and all that sort of stuff, so that they can put up with a fair bit of abuse in the sidewalls, unlike most of the even fashion four-wheel drive tyres, which have got pretty soft sidewalls. And that's due to, you know, you want your sidewalls, when you're rock climbing and thing, you want your tyres to wrap around the rocks a little bit. So I don't have any metal in the sidewall of the tyre to flex around, but it's sort of horses for courses with the tyres, and I'd prefer to run these Michelins with the steel belt, because I can just let these down and not have to stress out about doing a sidewall and all that. Whereas a lot of the fashion tyres, and especially hardcore off-road tyres, they always ripping sidewalls out. Just coming down to Orange track, as you can see, coming up. And the next tracks we're going to go on is Jenkins #1 track, Jenkin link track, and Jenkin #2 track. They all just do a sort of a loop through the bush here. And there is one steeper climb in Jenkins #1 track, but nothing that can't be done in a standard 4B. So as I was saying before, I can head straight down here, Orange track, and that'll take me down to Mount Disappointment. And this is heading down Jenkins #1. And you can see the back of the car sliding around a bit here. It's steeper than what it looks on camera, and just pulling it up in amongst all these clay little outcrops here is a bit hard work as the weight's transferred to the front. You can get a bit of an idea. It still doesn't show, it's steeper than it looks. And you can see the disco shudder here as it leaps off this rock. It definitely hit something hard underneath on the chassis. And there is a bypass around this little bit of a section here with the rocks. It's not the sort of section here that you want to be on standard road tyres filled with clay. It's steep enough that it'll turn you around as you're heading downhill in the wet. This ended up being pretty severe drone damage, even from this height. Broke the gimbal. I managed to bodgy it all up and keep it going, but it needed major repair after this. Jenkins track flattens out, steadies out on the way back to Horan's track. It's just a bit of a cruise up through here. The great thing is about the Tallarook State Forest and Mount Disappointment is that there's some pretty good tracks in amongst it. I mean, I've been doing these for decades and the tracks have got pretty eroded. There's tracks here that are far more eroded than they ever were, especially down in Mount Disappointment, that are quite challenging now, that weren't challenging tracks back 20, 25 years ago. And there's also some pretty good spots to camp in both Disappointment and Tallarook State Forest. But being only an hour from Melbourne, they're the sort of things that you can just do on a day trip. And once they've gone down once in the day, it's usually a second one coming. It really throws all the sensors and everything out. You've pretty much got to take them back and get them reset once you've crashed them once. And you can see here, once we're down at Cable Track, we've missed a fair bit of the track. This is the end back towards the main road. But you can see the drone footage is starting to get shaky because of the gimbal overheating from the crashes. But it's good enough to just take the last bit of footage here. Now these big mud holes are something that I normally avoid at all costs because you know when you're mucking around in this sort of stuff, you're destroying all your joints and just getting mud and dirt and everything, all your belts and alternator and it's really not good for your vehicle. It's the domain of teenagers. And the other problem is because all the newbies get in here, the way they sort of get in here without winches and all that sort of thing, and they'll get stuck, and then they'll put a heap of sticks in there as well, trying to, get their way out, and, they don't go back and take the sticks out, and that's a good way to get something ripped off in your car or something through the radiator. They're just best to avoid them at all costs. I was just mucking around in these ones on the outside edge, picking my way through for some Instagram reels. And I was going to head over to Bill's track and do the same thing in the same day, because I'll have the car on the hoist and give it a good go over after this. There is a lot of this sort of stuff around Tallarook and Mount Disappointment. And for anyone that's thinking of doing it in a standard 4B, there's a good chance you're going to look like a duck, because all the boys on the 37s have been in there ripping the hell out of it, and you'll be stuck on the centre of the diffs, and you'll have to get out and swim to get out of there. There's actually no way to avoid these ones, this big area here at Cable Track, other than turn around and go back. There was actually one back there, and you've probably seen the one I'm talking about, that was quite deep, that nearly got me. I thought I was going to be out and winching, and very muddy, cold and wet. But playing it for the win, what I usually do is, if I've got to go through these things, is I go in quite slowly, because you've got a chance of reversing out instead of marooning yourself up on the axle centres and then having to try and winch and get out. So if you go in slowly, you've got some sort of chance of going backwards if you feel like you're going to be marooned on the centres. But don't anyone tell the young players that, because it's always good fun seeing them race in there flat out, getting marooned, and then everyone starts swimming around and trying to get out of it. It's always good. That's a bit of Saturday morning fun for anybody that wants to drive out to Mount Disappointment or Tallarook, just to watch all the new players in these holes of a Saturday. I mean, it's some sort of rite of passage. I can remember down the Wandong side of Mount Disappointment, when you come in on the main mountain trail and you got up around the res, there used to be some huge holes like this, and they would literally swallow the car, and we'd go in there playing, and it was absolute just crazy. You'd be bogged in there and trying to get out. It was rite of passage. And then all of a sudden, after years of crawling around underneath the car, fixing all the damage from driving around and this sort of stuff, switch flicks, and you never want to go near them again. There really is no better way to work out who the seasoned players and the newbies are. And having said that, here we are on Bill's track, which is absolutely full of them. But these ones here are all very, very tame, and can be driven through with a normal 4B, most of them. There's a couple of right at the very start that are a bit sketchy, but most of them you can get through on a normal 4B, and you can see I'm bypassing anything that looks sketchy, because I really don't want to be up to my knees in mud. And when I first painted the disco in Sandglow, I took it up to Howker. I was up the Howker Inlet, and it was when Eildon was real low, and like a lot of the branches, when they come into Eildon, you can drive up them for ages, because it's just like the original creek before it was, and river before it was full, and they were really muddy. And I had the disco heading up the river and around a bend, and it just kept getting deeper and deeper. But I was committed, and there was no turning back, and I could just feel it sinking, and it was getting slower and slower. So I was just trying to inch forward, but it was just too late. Next minute, it was up over the windscreen, and the disco was stuck, and it was absolutely full of water to about, and just underneath dash height. There's mud all through the car and everything. And that's the end of this video. There's 3 in the series. Stay tuned for the next couple.